Welcome to another edition of VietnamPlus News. I'm Duy bringing you the latest headlines from around the globe.
Prime Minister attends virtual summit on climate action. Boosting quality and impact of FDI in Vietnam. Diplomacy's peace-building role demonstrated throughout historical periods. Vietnam, Laos stand in solidarity. The joy of reunification.
Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh on April 23rd attended a virtual summit on climate action at the invitation of UN Secretary-General António Guterres and Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva as leader of a country at the forefront of implementing the Just Energy Transition Partnership. The event was also attended by 16 heads of state and government and chairs of regional organizations such as ASEAN, the EU, the African Union, the Alliance of Small Island States, and the Caribbean Community. Speaking at the summit, Prime Minister Chinh said that climate change has become a harsh reality, seriously and deeply affecting every country and every resident. Yet climate actions are still far from the goals of the Paris Agreement, especially in terms of climate finance and commitments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. To effectively deal with these challenges, he highlighted the need for a new global-scale, comprehensive and inclusive mindset and approach, and for higher determination, stronger efforts, and more drastic actions, with breakthrough solutions and more effective implementation. The Prime Minister called on all countries to unite and cooperate, uphold multilateralism, ensure fairness and justice, and join hands in action through concrete, practical, and feasible cooperation mechanisms to unlock and mobilize resources for climate change response and sustainable development. Emphasizing that Vietnam considers climate change response a top priority, he said green transition is an inevitable trend, a strategic choice, a breakthrough driver, and a top priority. Prime Minister Chinh underscored that despite its status as a developing country with a transitioning economy and limited resources, Vietnam has made significant headway in green development. The country now stands out as a regional leader in renewable energy in ASEAN, a positive example in promoting sustainable agriculture, and an active, responsible member of multilateral mechanisms and global initiatives on green growth and energy transition. Reiterating Vietnam's steadfast commitment to achieving net zero emissions by 2050 and upholding the country's guiding spirit of being ready to participate, ready to cooperate, and ready to lead, the Prime Minister reaffirmed that Vietnam will continue to serve as a trusted partner and a responsible member of the international community in advancing green and sustainable development.
The Vietnam Connect Forum 2025 officially opened under the theme, Vietnam FDI Strategies in the New Era. This marks the 5th edition of the forum, co-organized by the Institute for Policy and Strategy Research under the Party Central Committee Commission for Policy and Strategy and Vietnam Economic Times, VN Economy. This year's event highlights the increasingly vital role of foreign direct investment amid a rapidly shifting global economy. Delegates emphasized the need to attract FDI more selectively and effectively to meet the demand as Vietnam enters a new development phase.
Vietnam's FDI strategy is no longer just about numbers, especially registered capital, but focuses on quality, efficiency, technology, and environmental sustainability.
As of March, Vietnam hosts more than 42,760 active FDI projects with total registered capital exceeding $510 billion USD. An increasing number of multinational corporations and major tech-driven companies are continuing to invest in Vietnam.
Although Lego Vietnam is a manufacturing company, we closely follow the Vietnamese government's evolving policy directions, which guide our decisions on potential expansion here in the future.
As a member of the Dutch Business Association in Vietnam and Eurocham, I can say that Vietnam has made strong progress in creating a favorable environment for investment and business operations, not just for FDI firms, but for all enterprises involved in manufacturing and exports.
Speakers at the forum noted a clear trend. FDI is increasingly flowing into high-tech sectors, R&D and AI. This represents a valuable opportunity for Vietnam to drive sustainable growth in its production and business sectors. To fully seize this opportunity, Vietnam must continue administrative reforms, enhance workforce quality, strengthen international cooperation, and adopt a more selective investment policy, one that prioritizes projects with strong impact and focuses on key economic regions.
Vietnam's diplomacy has consistently played a peace-building role throughout its history. From the struggle for national liberation and reunification to the national construction and development in peacetime, State President Luong Quang made the remarks while addressing an international seminar in Hanoi on April 23rd. The event spotlighted the significance of the historical victory in the resistance against the U.S. to liberate the South and reunify the nation 50 years ago, and the constructive role played by the nation's diplomacy in the past and at present. According to the president, every country, regardless of its size, experiences historic turning points, critical junctures that shape its destiny and development path. For Vietnam, the victory on April 30th, 1975, was a profoundly significant event in the nation's history. Highlighting the significant contribution of Vietnam's diplomacy to that historic victory, the president emphasized that, even after half a century, the historical significance and profound lessons from the triumph remain fully relevant and carry national and era-defining value, helping guide Vietnam's diplomatic efforts in peacebuilding and national defense and construction. He also highlighted the vital of diplomacy in reconstructing the country and successfully implementing the foreign policy of the Doi Moi renewal period, especially significant and historic contributions to the nation's development. Amidst historic and transformative global changes, State President affirmed that Vietnam fully recognizes its future and destiny are closely tied to peace, stability, cooperation, and development in the region and the world. He expressed his hope that the seminar would help offer practical directions for Vietnam to work with the international community in fostering and sustaining lasting peace in the region and the world. At the seminar, experts, historians, and scholars from Vietnam and abroad shared insights and lessons related to the party's leadership in the victory of the 1975 Spring General Offensive and Uprising. They also highlighted the pioneering role of diplomacy in securing a peaceful, stable, and prosperous environment and in enhancing Vietnam's international position in the new era.
Laos and Vietnam take great pride in their long-standing relationship. Since the founding of the Indochinese Communist Party, the revolutionary paths of the two nations have been inseparably linked, with both countries fighting side by side against common enemies and always ready to make sacrifices for one another.
Laos and Vietnam also share a deep sense of pride in the fact that their ruling parties originated from a common root. The Indochinese Communist Party, founded by President Ho Chi Minh in 1930. Over the decades, the two parties fought shoulder to shoulder against invaders, ultimately achieving complete victory in 1975.
Zayachak expressed her profound gratitude and deep respect for the Laos-Vietnam Combat Alliance. The two parties have always stood side by side, demonstrating solidarity and mutual support.
We will work closely with Vietnamese comrades to preserve and strengthen the great friendship, special solidarity, and comprehensive cooperation between the two parties, states, and peoples of Laos and Vietnam for generations to come.
The Lao official paid tribute to the sacrifices made by Vietnamese volunteer soldiers, known as Uncle Ho's soldiers, who devoted themselves to supporting the Lao Revolution and regarded Laos as their second homeland. She also extended her best wishes to the party, state, and people of Vietnam, expressing her hope for their continued success in building a strong, prosperous, and equitable Vietnam, as well as in the successful organization of the 14th Party National Congress.
An exhibition entitled Nation Full of Joy is underway at the Ho Chi Minh Museum in Hanoi to mark the 50th anniversary of Vietnam's reunification. One of the most moving exhibits is the original portrait of President Ho Chi Minh, painted in blood by artist Lê Duy Ung. He created it after suffering eye injuries during a battle at Nuoc Trong Base on April 28, 1975. Another emotional highlight is the photo North and South Reunited, which captures two mothers, one from the North and one from the South, embracing in joy after the country's liberation in October 1975. These are just two of more than 300 photos, documents, and artifacts on display, illustrating Vietnam's long and difficult resistance against U.S. and its journey to national reunification.
And I think that it demonstrates through these pictures that very well. And as I said, it's very important that we remember these things and that we reflect on their significance. So, very interesting.
Dr. Chu Duc Tin, former director of the Ho Chi Minh Museum, reflected on a photo titled Liberation of Phuoc Long, January 1975, which brought back vivid memories of his time as a soldier.
I was one of the soldiers in Ho Chi Minh City on April 30th, 1975. I feel emotional seeing the photo of Phuoc Long's liberation on January 16th, 1975. My regiment was part of Division 9, Corps 4, which took part in this historic operation. That strategic reconnaissance strike strengthened the Politburo's determination to liberate the South in 1975. It confirmed that the Americans could no longer return to the battlefield.
We students will always strive to study hard. We will preserve the legacy our ancestors left behind and remain grateful for their sacrifices in winning our nation's independence and freedom.
The exhibition is divided into three sections: Aspirations for Peace, the Great Spring Victory of 1975, and Vietnam, Reaching New Heights. The exhibition is open to visitors until August 10th at the Ho Chi Minh Museum in Hanoi.